Hello students, this is Habiba from Sacred Heart College, Department of English. So today we are going to see the subject Indian Writing English Pre-Independence from the Unit 1, The Stone Goddess by Sri Aurobindo. So first we would like to see about the author. Sri Aurobindo was an Indian philosopher, poet and nationalist. He is someone who has concentrated more on philosophy. He has played a role in fighting for Indian freedom, but later turned towards spirituality. After fighting, this fellow has turned as a spiritual person, and that's how he connected to God, and he started writing poems. And his famous works include Savitri and Life Divine, that highlights the connection between the material life and the spiritual world. It means, he writes about the worldly life and the spiritual life. And here in The Stone Goddess, he reflects the spiritual awakening while observing a stone as an idol. Yes, so he observed stone as an idol and he connected stone, and that's how he wrote a poem. Then talking about the poem summary, so this poem describes about the poet's experience of looking at a stone just like a goddess. So in this poem he considers stone as a goddess. At first he sees only the lifeless stone. Okay, in the beginning of the poem he sees this stone as a lifeless stone, and later he continues to observe what it is, and he realized that this idol embodies something which is more greater than a stone. It is not just a stone. He realized the stone is not just a stone, but the stone itself represents something which is very divine, beyond the human understanding, which is something very spiritual. And this realization led him to understand the God's power. He represents something. God represents through the idols, through the objects, and God is present everywhere, including within ourselves. So yes, moving on to the theme of the poems. The first theme is divinity in stillness, spiritual awakening, symbolism of the goddess. Divinity in the stillness. Here the poet sees spiritual power even in unknown living objects. So it is not necessary you are going to see the spirituality or the power of God through humans or through something which is divine. No, here he means to say even though some non-living objects can represent the idea of God. And the second theme, the spiritual awakening. Here the poet describes the realization that the divine is not limited. Okay, it is not limited to the status, but it exists everywhere, in every places. The last theme is symbolism of the goddess. The stone idol represents both stillness and infinite cosmic energy. So here the stone itself represents something which is very divine, and it has some fundamental energy. It gives the energy which is coming from God. And then we have symbols and imagery. The stone idol. The first symbol is stone idol, which represents the eternal truth and unchanging divine presence. And the second, we have the goddess, symbolism, wisdom, power, and infinite. And the last, we have the poet's vision that shows how this journey from external worship to inner realization. Yes. So we got three symbols: stone idol, goddess, and the poets. What the stone symbolize? It symbolizes the truth, the unchanging divine presence. That you cannot change the divine presence. If it is present somewhere, that you cannot change, that you cannot, you cannot neglect the point. And the second, we have the goddess, which symbolizes power, wisdom, and infinite. Third, we have the poet's vision, shows his journey from external worship to inner realization. And lastly, we have the important lines of the poem. I looked for thee alone, but met my glance. The poem was, so here the poet was searching for the divine and found it in a stone idol. He was searching for God, he was searching for something spiritual, but later he found in a stone. And we have a stone, and yet the body seemed to be, though lifeless, the ideal appeared to contain something beyond the physical. So the object is lifeless, but it represents something beyond the human understanding, that is something which is very spiritual. And Nietzsche revealed a divinity. The stone was not just a statue, it is the hidden divine energy. That is how it is. So lastly, I would like to conclude this slide that the poem teaches the spirituality is not confined to temples or ideas, but it present everywhere. Not necessarily you can search spirituality in the temples or mosques, but it is present in everywhere. And through the deep understanding, we can find the divine power within ourselves. So the poet's message is encouraged self-discovery. He's encouraging you to discover yourself in a broader perspective to understand the divine.